So in addition to our speakers, we have John Magee from Hitachi Vantara, Jesse Alleyne from Microsoft, and Neil Sharma from L&T Technology. So let's start at that end. Neil, if you could just, I'm going to have the panelists kind of introduce themselves and tell us why they're sitting here today. So Neil, we'll start with you.
So I'm Neelkandan Sharma. I'm VP for Digital Advisory Group within L&T Services. Been in the industry for 26 years, gone from supply chain, manufacturing, execution, and pieces. So from an ARC standpoint, looking at digital strategies and the next generation, how can we help? And so one of the things is to discuss within the panel, see that what are the next steps which is looking at. Everyone is in various stages of maturity in terms of digital, how they adopt it, where they are. And in some cases, they are in the fundamental stages where they need to set their operations in a state where they can leverage any digital technologies. And in some cases, the digital technologies break those boundaries and help them to get where they wanted to be in terms of what Kevin was talking about, in terms of productivity, what can be done. Sometimes the digital technologies help them to take that leap, break the boundaries, what they're looking at. So today's session is to get through some of those and get to know more about from the team here and learn from it.
Thank you. John Magee?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm John Magee with Hitachi, and actually, I just want to say first, those were 3 great presentations. So kudos to the presenters. I think really good snapshot. So I lead go-to-market for Hitachi Vantara in the Digital Solutions organization. So that's the group that takes to market the Lumada data and analytics platform and our consulting and advisory services around digital transformation for industrial companies, as well as a lot of our cloud optimization and cloud native application and ERP solutions. So, I think we've worked with ARC in the past. It's always been a great relationship, and it's just pleasure to be here and meet so many people who are on this same journey and working through these issues on strategy and execution.
Thanks, John. Jesse?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Allen. I'm our manufacturing industry executive. So the role of my team within Microsoft and the role of the organization called Customer Success is to focus on manufacturing specific use cases. So many of you are probably thinking, what is Microsoft doing at a manufacturing conference, right? We're not here to talk about Excel or Office or Windows. What does Microsoft know about manufacturing? So unlike a lot of my peers within the company, my background is engineering. I started at Honeywell and worked at FMC after that. And the role of our team is to reconnect with our customers' KPIs and to talk about the risk profiles or talk about technology in a way that business leaders understand it within manufacturing companies. So we focus on OEE, my team, supply chain optimization, OTIF, all of these challenges that manufacturers are dealing with. And then we structure the Microsoft portfolio and work with our partner ecosystem to bring solutions to bear in a way that understands our customers' challenges and opportunities, but also helps them mitigate that risk if they're not used to buying technology or if they're working with IT in new ways that they haven't before.
Okay, thanks very much. So now we'll have the fun part, which is we'd love to have some questions from the audience. So we've got a microphone here. And while you're thinking about that, if anybody's got a question, just please let us know. We'll grab the microphone, and we've got a question right over here. Himanshu, if you can do that. 1 second. No, because we're trying to record this session as well, so we just have a little microphone logistics issue here, but I think we're caught up.
Thanks. Great presentations. So my question is, the title here is 21st Century Transformation Strategies, right? So what's different between the 20th and the 21st century as far as using computers to solve operations issues is concerned?
I guess I will kind of start with that one. So when we look at the volume, variety, velocity of data, right? The ability to consume massive amounts of compute for low costs, right? So if you think about the historical buying model, you would buy a lot, you'd spend a lot of OpEx, experiment, and hope for an outcome. Today, you can actually use these capabilities as services, and then the ability to build these artificial intelligence models and deploy them to edge devices. And when I say edge devices, that's everything from PCs to phones to cameras to IoT sensors. All of these capabilities have kind of come into the fold at the same time, and I think that's what's driving both the difference in consumption of technology within organizations, but the capabilities of technology as well.
No, in fact, the other thing from a 21st century, if you see that it's just becoming more and more in terms of smart products, looking at how the evolution of smart products and looking at how to manage the smart products and how downstream that whatever that you do in the design and everything, how can we take it downstream into various, in terms of manufacturing and services. So some of these technologies and the transformation helps in terms of one, to reduce the cost. Obviously, everything has to associate with something that reduce the cost and what can be done with it. So somewhere the technology helps to bring down the cost, improve the operations, what can be done. So there's a lot of data being also collected, as mentioned, that how can we glean from that and use that to move into that. It's not just to collect the data, but then what can be gleaned from it. And sometimes we collect more data, what mentioned, as Vijay mentioned, that we collect more data than what we wanted to have. How are we collecting the optimal data that we want, the necessary, so that we know what needs to collect and what needs to go on the next phase. So the transformation in terms of the strategies associated with that, even the product evolution, how it is coming in, how the smart manufacturing can be associated with the smart product development aspect of it can be taken.
From a business side, one difference that differentiates 20th century strategy to a 21st century strategy is the rate of change. In a fast-moving ecosystem, how do you get value and keep getting value and keep your business going? Is the rate of change, the speed of rate of change, and being able to be agile enough to get the benefit out of the technologies that are coming so fast at us while we're not losing out to our competitors. 20th century gave us some time, 21st century, you had to be real quick.
Yeah, I would just add one more. Obviously, the technology drivers, connectivity, compute, everything else is driving the ability to be more connected and have a lot more data. But just to follow on the point about business models, in addition to the rate of change, which is driving the imperative for digital transformation, I think it's also the connectedness of the ecosystems out there. So very few the companies we work with have a goal of being completely vertically integrated, right? Just the opposite. In fact, they're unpacking and they're optimizing supply chains, they're optimizing their ecosystems, and doing that, it really requires these kinds of technologies in the same way that the rate of change. So being able to use global supply chains and manufacturing approaches, design approaches across that spectrum. And that just wasn't going to be possible last year, given where we're at with the state of the technology, the state of the business models, the state of the relationships and trade and everything else. So.
I think along that, absolutely the rate of change. But in addition to that, the role that technology plays today is completely different in my mind than what it was last century. IT is considered a value proposition now, a competitive advantage, a cost reducer and a revenue generator. And all of our initiatives should be focused on directly to the customer, lowering our costs and increasing our profits. The days of just maintaining and existing are gone. And the challenge that we have as an organization, again, I think it's much different now than it was last decade, is the rate of change in the industry and the customers and the competition. Our largest competition is targeting our customers directly with crazy offers and crazy things, and you have to stay current with technology, and you have to stay current with industry trends, and that's very difficult today because the rate of change is so fast.
Okay. I see we have another question ready.
Hello, yeah, this is Richard Rolke from Dow Chemical, or I should say Dow Inc. now. I do have a question. You mentioned a lot about rate of change, and with all the new tools coming at you and all the new digital innovations and everything being sold at you, did you have or struggle with which to implement, which not to implement, success rates, finding things that maybe weren't mature enough, right? Sounded good on paper, but when you actually got to implementation, didn't work out. Any thoughts on that?
Good.
I found out it's not really the tools. It's how we do the homework, right? A lot of times we're applying tools to sub-optimized processes just because we like the tool. All the tools that we have out here for digital transformation, be it companies that do things for mom, companies that do things for supply planning, if you don't have a good solid business process and it's optimized business process and you try to apply a tool to it, all it's going to do is just expose what you're not doing. And if the tool gets the blame, but it's really your lack of business process and the fundamentals of how you transact. That's really the root cause of it.
I can tell you that I made every mistake possible in that area, and I learned a valuable lesson. And the valuable lesson I teach my team is solve the business problem functionally first, and then find a partner, Microsoft or one of their VARs, find a partner who knows what they're doing and can help you. It's not staff augmentation, it's bringing that partner in and training them and have them recommend and train the technology that you should be using. It's hard enough just to stay current in technology, and it's hard enough to run your business. We're not going to be able to stay current with the best possible tools out there. So use consultants and use Microsoft and other strategic partners to make the right decision, because it's extremely costly, as you know, to make the wrong decision and select the wrong tools.
I echo that. On our journey, we didn't have the knowledge to even evaluate the tools. We didn't know all the tools. So when in our strategy, in our roadmap, the tool is not important. We define a business problem, and we are looking for solution as a service. The vendor can use any tool they want. We did not tell Hitachi how to build the cloud. If we did that, we would have been in trouble. So we didn't choose the tools there. We know what we want from our data in this example of data, or for the chatbot. We know what we want to do as a business, and let the people who are experts in that, who know how the tools are changing, help us deliver that solution as a service. If that tool goes out of something new, brand new comes out the next day, it's on them to provide that solution, give us the same business value. For smaller manufacturing companies like us, that model seems to work better for us because we cannot know all the tools to even choose one or compare one to other.
So in most cases, the one we also see that the strategies are defined by the tools. That's where the wrong side of it, where you define if there's a 5G, there's a cloud, can we do blockchain, can we do this? But not, as everyone said, that the fact is you need to underlay what is the business benefit, what is we are trying to solve. It doesn't matter what it is. Finally, you may end up in one of those things, but the idea is to see what is the KPI use cases that you're looking at and what is the technology. As a broad roadmap needs to be there in terms of the business, what you want to achieve in 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, and then technology will fall in place, and you may find that you may jump one technology to another one, you'll be better off than being in every technology you want to touch and feel it in terms of doing it.
All right, very good. We have a question in the very back of the room, I think.
Yes, so Sebastian Herman from Siemens. Thanks, first of all, for the good presentations. I have a question. Vijay, you mentioned that, and I see that with my customers, interestingly as well, while IT and OT is converging from a technology point of view, when you look at the organizational boundaries in companies, quite often there are different worlds that in fact don't even talk to each other. So how do you address that in your companies, or how do you address that with your clients for the ones that are advisors?
That is a challenge because there is a language gap, there is a lot of ego gap, I'm being honest, between those boundaries, and It has been that way for a long time. It's a cultural change. It's more of the people, understanding the people. So we deal with the people part of it, and we're working with Hitachi came and did a study on how we are organized in the technology organization. And I can tell what we are trying, and probably next year when we are here, I can tell you how it's working. We created the Smart Manufacturing Council in between. Let them do what they do the best. Do not disrupt that, and create a council with a vision, and let them self-organize themselves. Because at this point, I don't know what IIoT convergence will exactly mean, because there is still very specialized skills in IT and OT. So we're trying to build something we don't know what to expect. So let those two groups organize themselves and provide them the structure of the Smart Manufacturing Council to let them work together.
I guess I can tell you how we're handling it. So this is one of the challenges that led Microsoft to form the industry team in the first place. This language gap that you just mentioned between historically Microsoft sellers have been very well enabled to talk to IT people, but as we invested in IoT, for example, and historically ERP conversations, the technologists would lose the messaging and the business leaders. So one of the things, or one of the areas where we advise our customers, both on the OT and IT sides, is in bridging that gap. I think that feasibility matrix slide that you shared, we actually go through that exercise independently with IT and OT to understand what their perception of feasible is, and then what their perception of impact is. Because we've gone through 3 years now of POCs where one side will build something and then the other side will say it's not supportable. Or the other example is one side will build something and then the other side will say it's not important, it's not valuable, right? So when we're having these conversations, I think this is one of the muscles that is most important to what industry brings to these technology organizations, is to help companies kind of qualify and scope these initiatives early on with both sides in the room. Otherwise, you'll get into this area where you'll have a POC, and as you mentioned, it could be great, but it can't be consumed. So you need to address these challenges up front and bring those two groups together, or it's not worth the time in the long run.
It's difficult to find IT folks that speak operations technology. Manufacturing engineers back 20, 25 years ago, underneath the subset of that was controls engineers. Now, before they started disappearing, controls engineers, they spoke IT. And a lot of the different folks that when you would connect the machines on the floor, you would have the controls engineer that would be doing that with the process engineer. Now, as time went on, the manufacturing engineer, the controls engineer, they started leaving companies or getting let go from companies. And a lot of that history that was there from understanding the infrastructure technology left. It is a gap right now for IT/OT professionals. And I think it's something that we have to really lean into in these forums to try to build that competency up, or we'll never get true adoption, because they speak different languages. I'm speaking efficiency. You're talking about servers. And we say, well, you need an on-prem server. I just need to make sure I attain my schedule. Well, I want to show you how you attain your schedule. I need to get the data and collect the data. I'm going to convert it to analytics. I need to meet my schedule. So if you're not talking the same language, we're not going to get full adoption, because it's power with the IT/OT convergence. But the difference is we're missing each other. So it's really something we have to go back and take back to our companies and really lean into getting that community of folks, the IT/OT professionals, talking, meshing, and developing proof of concepts together and use cases together so they can start speaking the same operational language. The IT professional has to show how the IT improves operational language, operational metrics, versus the ones and zeros that they sometimes talk.
One of the things that we did was to address that, is I said that IT cannot lead any projects. It has to be the operational technology group, and we partner with them. I forced my team to travel to every facility that we have. They got to go there and stay there and get the projects done. They work together. They do the analysis together, the design together, the testing together, the implementation together. And when, it was very tough. The IT team did not want to do it. But the more they did it, the more they learned the business, the better that relationship came. And I was talking to the gentleman's question earlier. The role of IT has completely changed. IT is not just about technology. It's about understanding the business, learning the business, listening to our customers, which is our other employees who work at the same company, and they can't do their job without us. And we got to have a better understanding of the business. And the more we do that, it makes that organizational change management so much easier, because it's a nightmare in some companies, including ours previously. And then also the culture. You have to have a culture of change, and they both have to agree to it.
Two really important points there, Tim. Thanks. There's a question right here near the front.
Hi, David Brosel from the Manufacturing Leadership Council. Greg, you had mentioned there's a lot of expected benefits around 4.0, maybe too many, but a lot of expected benefits. One of the biggest is the data itself, in the data. And if we get really, really good at being able to mine the data, we may find things in the data that could lead us not just to higher efficiencies or more productivity or cost savings incrementally, but maybe even step changes in those three things, but maybe even beyond that, maybe new products that you never thought of before, maybe new services that you never thought of before. So it's kind of a two-part question. First of all, do you believe in that premise? And secondly, where are you on your journeys, the three of you, in terms of how well you think you're mining the data that you're getting from operations at this point? Where do you stand on that? Do you think you're just getting started, or do you think you're really good at it at this point? Where do you think you are?
I can tell you that IT thinks that they know what the data is going to tell them, and the OT people think they know what the data is going to tell them. And in many cases, we were wrong. Like I told you, we made every mistake possible. But that's when you use that outside group that is unbiased, that just looks at the data as it is, and they mine it that way. And with predictive analytics, it doesn't have any, there's no influence. It just uses raw data and makes decisions and tells you what it thinks. And the more we listen to the data, it just opened our minds. We were closed-minded because we thought that's the way it was going to be, and it wasn't that way. So again, I wouldn't suggest that we all try to become data miners, because it's not a skill that we should take on in our group, because we're tainted on our results and the data and what we think. And when we stopped that and had an external group do it, it really changed our company.
Go ahead.
I can go next. Like I said, we have been collecting a lot of data, and we've been, our process analysts were going into that data, the 35,000 data. We didn't add any more sensors or started collecting any more data. We were collecting a lot of data that we're not using. So I would say data mining wise, we're doing well, and our analysts can find what they're looking for. The advantage we got now is all of that 35,000 data point. IT people don't understand time series, and our OT people don't understand relational databases that much. And the value is in when business data meets the operational data and tells what business problems are coming out of the operations. And neither of those groups within our organization know how to do it with the other set of data. That's where what the integration part, we have been very blessed, I should say. Hitachi came with a lot of operational history. They did a lot of OT for a long time. They're also a big data and IT company, and they are creating our data integration, and they brought OT, IT, and data science into us. So when Hitachi data scientist is looking at data, they're not looking for something. They're looking for anomalies. That's where we started, and the anomaly detect. They're trying to look for what we never tried to look for because our IT people did not know how to analyze the time series, and our production analysts don't know how to look at what the sensor is doing, what the temperature running at that time. So that's that combination for us, that partnership, I think helped our data mining. The questions we get from Hitachi data scientists, we never thought of asking those questions. And they know how to talk to both sides of our employees, so it's funny. Sometimes we talk through them because they can translate it for us.
See, I'm probably the wrong person to ask this because I'm not real big on data scientists. I'm real big on industrial engineers. That's who used to crunch the data for us. They actually understand what the data needs to convert to. It's only so much we need to run on operations. It's only so many metrics. And the transfer function from the data of the connected machine up to the metric, it's finite. You have so many folks that are going and mining things just for the sake of science that it's not needed. It's a waste of time. So I would hire more industrial engineers, more manufacturing engineers to do that work, to design good manufacturing process, to understand how your routing should be in balance line, and then materials folks who understand material science and what they need to pull from the flow through of materials, from raw material to finished good, versus just having a data science for the sake of trend.
All right. Do we have another question teed up in the audience? So back over here again.
You only get one question per. Sorry.
You're building.
Yeah, I guess great discussions already, but a big question is China, right? I mean, how much, since we are all competing with China at some level, is China using data? Do we know? Are we at par? What's up with productivity and competition in terms of pure capital and scale versus data?
It's not just China. I'll answer that question from a developing markets to developed markets. Logan Aluminum is owned by Novelis, which is owned by Hindalco from India, and half owned by a Japanese company. We have benchmarking, digital transformation benchmarking conversations back and forth. When I see what they're doing, I think the developing countries have a need. They're hungrier than us because they're trying to compete with us. I think they're trying to use that advantage. When the change comes, people who are trying to chase take advantage of those tools. People who, like Logan, we are world leaders, right? We're not scared of anybody else till they come and overtake us or put us out of business. So need to be careful about that attitude, that aspect of today. It's not entirely a flat globe, but it is fairly connected globe. So technology travels very fast. I don't think there is that advantage of we can do things that they can't. That's 20th century strategy. We should be careful about it. At least we are trying to be careful about that.
I think we're kidding ourselves here. I used to work at Rockwell and automation, and we used to do assessments of different companies. We haven't invested in our manufacturing facilities in the United States in years. And then all of a sudden, now we have Industry 4.0 over something that we haven't invested in sometimes 30 years. Have you visited other plants that are out there? You walk in, and it's like the plant I walked in General Motors in 1995 for most of the plants that I walk into. Same type of robots that are there, same PLC 230s. 230 came out in the 70s. But it's working. So we haven't invested a lot in our infrastructure. So I think we need to take a leap in trying to do that at our companies to say we need to come into the 20th century, at least the end of it, to try to improve our infrastructure and our manufacturing footprint that's here. And then we can step into how we can go into the 21st century and apply a lot of these things we're talking about.
Kevin, thank you. I think you put your finger on it. That's really what a lot of us are facing. Anybody else want to comment about it?
So I'll kind of add a piece there. So when we're looking at transformation, I think there's kind of two phases or two cycles, right? You have the incremental, right, where there's it's not as easy as it was maybe 10 years ago, but there's certainly things that we can improve on continuously today by leveraging technology. And then there's the step change kind of questions, right, where you need to look at asking different questions, right? So how, first, the industry itself might need to be changed, and then what can technology add to that industry change? So I think, Tim, your example of, we don't need to just be incrementally better at what we're currently doing and looking at our competitors the same way we classically have. What are unique ways that we can use technology to completely change the conversations that we're having? So I tend to joke about Detroit because I went to school there, and I say, historically, the most profitable car you can have is the one that breaks down the most often that people continually buy, right? Because you make your money on service in the auto industry. So there's a complete divergence between the customer, their requirements and their needs, and the company, right? So if you're looking at improving your vehicle, you have a problem. But now when you look at it and you say, well, how can we align with our customers' requirements, right? So if I provide a service instead of providing a car, and I make my car more reliable, we're actually more profitable and the customer's happier. So I think there's kind of the incremental conversation that needs to be had about how do we do what we're doing better, more efficiently, more optimized, but then also how do we ask the question about how can we differentiate in a way where the conversation is completely different?
Thanks. That's a transformation that's worth thinking about. And it's not an incremental, same thing we've been doing for 30 years kind of an approach. Another question in the audience here?
Hi, Kevin Wilhelm with Eli Lilly. My question's around new engineers, new professionals coming into your organizations. How well do you feel that the universities, colleges are preparing those folks to work in your organizations? And what would you like to maybe see different in terms of their preparation, their skill sets?
I think the colleges are doing an excellent job. I think that we're the problem. Because right now at Georgia Tech, they have a supply chain department. They have a manufacturing engineering department. They have an IT/OT department. Now, those are subsets of the traditional electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. Those are the traditional engineerings that they have. But when they come in, are we listening? Or are we too much the same? Are we allowing them to think and transform our company? Because I'm going to tell you, they have, in a lot of University of Wisconsin, I just talked to a lady, and the Connected Institute. All of these different colleges are partnering with industry to figure out difficult problems. You can take your difficult problem to a lot of colleges and have them do it do the use case development with them at the particular colleges. But my question to us is, are we allowing them to be their true selves? Are we allowing them to think and create?
I think that we need to rethink our educational system. These kids today are graduating with a tremendous amount of student debt, and they're taking a lot of classes that are not applicable to what their goals are in life. And I think universities, like I just came back from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and there's a college there that is completely retooling the way that they do things now. And they're offering certifications as opposed to associates and bachelor's degrees. They're offering specialized internships, paid internships, whether it be the organization that hires them or the college. And it's focusing just specifically on what they want to do. So when they get out, they have a much lower debt, and they have some business experience, and it makes it much easier to get a job. I mean, I went to school eons ago. In the first 2 years, were wasted taking classes that I wouldn't, no value to me at all. In the last 2 years, it was where I was focused on my technology, which is completely obsolete now. But if you focus on just that, right, your debt is a lot smaller, you're learning a lot more, you're staying current. I do think it is, I think the educational institutions are behind in the technology as well. I do think there are some awesome ones out there, but I think if you look at the programs out there, how many of them offer a data science degree? How many of them offer, you know, data analytics? And when you look at online universities like Udacity, for example, my son's in high school, and he's taken 9 classes through Udacity so far in data science, right? Business analytics, things like that. So when he gets to college, he'll have a better chance. So again, I think they need to rethink the education of the student and the debt, the burden that they come out with, and focus on really training and educating our younger generation, and that'll give us a great shot for the future.
I agree that when corporate works with universities, you get better result. How much of that is happening? It varies from region to region. Cambridge probably has a little more than Kentucky. I don't know why. Sorry. I echo that. Our educational system, by the time they print a book and create a course, it's obsolete. Mm-hmm. And today's learning is from technology is current, and corporate working with universities. Came back from MIT REAP program. MIT has this program where government, universities, venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, and corporations are working together on region. You can Google MIT REAP. That model works, and we're working with, Logan is working with a university in Pikeville, which is where the coal mines went away, and we have coding coal miners coming out of there. So if you don't have that collaboration in corporations or universities which are not collaborating with the counterparts, you train students engineers for something, they come into the corporate, and the corporate doesn't respect what they learned and want them to learn what corporate did for the last 35 years, and they won't stay. Or they learn something that corporate doesn't need. So we have a pay-for-work program. We're working with students while they're in their education system, and they come and work with us, and we have a synergy there. It's still early. We just started it last year. Our first data scientist from Pikeville will be coming to Logan. She's a young math graduate, has a little bit of Python, a lot more to learn on data science, but we're building that with universities and regions.
Okay, terrific. I think that's a perfect question to end this on. And I'd like to encourage all of you to join our speakers and panelists here today, here in the 21st century. And please join me in thanking them as well.